Pregame.com.
Pregame.tv, welcome back. NFL action, Brady Kannon and Steve Fezzik. Thursday night here in one of America's finest cities. Not the finest city, that's San Diego because of the weather, but we're going to go to Minnesota, Washington, facing the Vikings. One team surprisingly still in it, the Washington Redskins. Another team, why would you even ponder thinking about the playoffs? Brady Kannon.
Nice one, ponder.
What do you think?
Well, you know, both of these teams have played a decent schedule difficulty-wise, but now they get to face off against each other, and we both know they're well below average, especially Minnesota. They have very poor defenses, and Washington ranks in the NFL with a very prolific offense. It's very interesting, this matchup. It's very similar to the teams they played last week.
Ignore the bad phone. Keep going.
Washington goes against San Diego last week, who's a team that is decent against the run and horrible against the pass and has a great offense. Minnesota goes against the team last week in Dallas, who has a great offense and has a horrible defense. And here you have a similar matchup. Washington has the great offense. They both have poor defenses. So we're going to look at the total in this game because I think because of the poor defenses and their ability to score, Christian Ponder now in his third week back with the team, I think he's getting some repetition under his belt. He showed that he can score against Dallas. He ought to be able to score against Washington, and I think the same is true where the Redskins, who have scored all year long, are going to be able to pick apart that Viking defense.
Let's go right to the numbers here on the quarterback ratings, and I've got both of these. Washington's opponents have a 98 quarterback rating. The Vikings opponents have a 97 quarterback rating. To put this in perspective, the NFL average is 87. Both of them a full 10 points below average. So we would expect that both a surging RG3 and a surprisingly good Christian Ponder will go ahead and be able to have quite a bit of success. Any concern? I talked about how, and it really hasn't held true to form, how Thursday nights, a lot of times we look for unders, but we haven't seen that this year. It seems like NFL teams have been more ready to go and not being conservative off the short week.
Right, and typically the public play is to bet the total over on a primetime game, and I see, you know, taking the other side going under that, but I'm not seeing that this week. Again, I think it just sets up. You've got Washington, who gains 5.9 yards per play, and on defense they give up 6.1. On the other side, Minnesota on defense can't get out on third down almost 50% of the time. So you take that into account along with the fact that these teams are going to probably go into the game plan this week knowing that they each have poor pass defenses, saying, okay, we need to throw the ball because these teams' defenses are better against the run than they are the pass. And we know when you pass the ball, it slows down a game, giving us more opportunity for points.
I know in the Green Bay-Minnesota game, there was a prop out there who was going to punt first. And I'm not going to say that was one of the easiest props of the year, but I'm still waiting for the Green Bay punter to come out there. He did not have to punt all game long, although that's certainly going to change here going forward with the much despised Seneca Wallace for the Green Bay Packers. But before we talk about that, and before you make this one official, we're about to do this, any chance the Redskins can still win this division?
Oh, yeah, there is, and I think that plays into this game as well. They're 3-5 right now. The Eagles are 4-5. The Cowboys are 5-4, I believe, 5-3. I don't think they've had their bye yet, 5-4. So absolutely, they win this game, and they're tied with the Eagles for second place.
Very good. I think the New York Giants control their own destiny, despite having 6 losses.
Yes.
If they win out, they go ahead and they take it, and people are like, oh, that's assuming normal stuff happens. No, that assumes anything happens, they control their destiny. Let's make this one official. Let's go ahead and get your pick.
Okay, we're taking a look at the Washington Redskins visiting the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football. We're going to take a look at the total in this pick. The number is 48.5 in some spots, and I would suggest getting it now because it has gone up in most places around the country. So you take two weak teams that both have weak defenses, and the Minnesota Vikings have been improving lately on offense while Washington has been very good all year on offense. They play a similar opponent that they just faced last week with a weak defense and a good offense. Washington comes into the game calculating 5.9 yards per play and giving up 6.1 yards per play on defense, while the Minnesota Vikings can't get off the field on third down 50% of the time. Now, take a look at some of the trends in this game. The Minnesota Vikings, their last 5 games at home, have all gone over the total. They are 8-2 in the over after they played Dallas. They're 3-1 on the over in their last 4 games against Washington, and they're 7-3 to the over as a non-division dog of less than 4 points. Now, on the Washington side, they're 4-1 to the over against the NFC North and 4-2 on the over on the road on Thursday. Everything seems to point towards the over, and most of all, I think these teams are going to want to throw the ball because they know the weakness of the other team's defense is against the pass. And if it's not a game where they're running the ball constantly, the clock is going to slow down with them passing the ball. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for points. The number's 48.5. Last week, the Minnesota Vikings against Dallas, a very similar opponent, scored 50. Last week against a similar opponent in the San Diego Chargers, the Washington Charger game was a total of 54. This one's at 48.5. I think anything under 50 is a good play. We're going with the Washington Redskins and Minnesota Vikings over the total of 48.5.
All right, shootout here, Minnesota, Washington expected, and we expect the one, the only, the Vegas runner back from his excursion. Who knows where? Maybe some Dom was involved. He will be with us the next 3 picks. We're going to have a college football pick. The big boys, the Wisconsin Badgers against the Holy Ones. BYU, stay with us. Pregame.tv.